So, I'm here at the Uma Institute of Buddhist Studies in Boonsville, Virginia. It actually is Boonsville, Virginia. And I'm putting on the shawl that His Holiness gave me. I forgot it last time. In Dharamsala, after I produced the first small volume in this series, but I didn't tell him I was working on it. And he said, "Now you are a Nyingma Lama." And I figured he was trying to find some way to give me a compliment. And I figured he just meant I'm a lay person working on the stereotype that there are many Nyingma Lamas who are lay people. But I also reflected, well, I just finished a book, a Nyingma text, and how could he know about that? But I didn't reflect long on that. And as I think I've told you at the Shravasti monastery, that I wondered where he got it, this one. It's not a traditional lay lama's shawl. And I figured it was probably given to him at a Jewish ceremony. You know, he gets many things like this. And of course, he can't give it back at the end. He has to take it away. And I often end up with his, with gifts given to him, or I used to end up with. So I figured, well, he gave it to Jeffrey. But I asked one of my friends here in Boonsville, Virginia, Jewish fellow, and he felt it, and he said, it's of too good quality to be that sort of a shawl. And finally, an Indian told me it was of such good quality it has to be such and such from India, a Hindu shawl. So I often wear it when I teach. It's too hot. So behind me here is a picture of Khetsun Sangpo, who's wearing a true Nyingma Lama's, actually, I believe any lay lama's robe, but actually it may be peculiar to Nyingma, but frankly, I don't know. But in any case, I'm not a Nyingma Lama or any Lama. Put it that way. It's not that I'm not a Nyingma Lama, I'm not a Lama. And don't pretend to be. His Holiness previously had called me a geisha, and I refused to accept that compliment. I said, well, then I'm a geisha without ethics in Tibetan. I said that because to be a geisha, you have to study ethics, the ethics of a monastic, and you have to be a monastic in order to study them, in order to study that type of ethics. So I said in Tibetan, Dulme Geshe. And His Holiness said, what? And the translator, who usually doesn't have anything to do, when we're talking in Tibetan, explained to His Holiness the Tibetan that I was speaking. He understood what I meant. So I think because I was refusing that compliment, His Holiness at this meeting, in this audience, was giving me a compliment that I could understand. And I had no smart aleck response in order to refuse this compliment. And I've tried to learn how to accept a compliment. Anyway, but if I had had a smart aleck response, well, then I would have had to blah, blah, blah. But I didn't have a smart aleck response. Just a sort of open-faced duh response. All right. So, as you know, I've been listening to Khetsun Sangpo, and I'm listening to his remarks in a different way this time. And trying to get more of what he said into the translation in the book. I was listening in a different way. And I guess I won't try to describe the different way. So we're up to the point where it says the final destination. Is everyone there? I only in one place have I translated the word Gongba as, just previous to this, as exalted standpoint. And here in this line, I have stayed with exalted thought. After all, Khetsun Sangpo himself says that Gongba is the honorific of mind, and thus, whether you call it exalted mind or exalted thought, what's being talked about is the exalted perspective. It may be hard to figure out why I would say exalted standpoint, exalted perspective, exalted outlook, but as Tsongkhapa says, instead of saying exalted mind, he says the exalted, instead of mind, which is Sem, he says that Gongba is the honorific of Samba, which is again thought or thinking. It's in the triad of hearing, thinking, and meditating. It's the word that is most often translated as thinking. But of course, it's not the thinking of conceptual thinking. A Buddha is not dumb. So a Buddha has thought. But that thought is non-conceptual. So it's a perspective. But even here in what Khetsun Sangpo was previously saying, it maybe is the standpoint, the deep structure. It obviously teased me a lot. And despite my penchant not to come up with different words, this was one of very few places where I used a very different term. And Khetsun Sangpo used a very easily understandable explanation for quintessential instructions. These are easier practices. And Mipam gathered these together from holy beings here in this text. He wanted us to have them. So he gathered them together from many different places and put them here in this text. Really nice. Very helpful to have. And Khetsun Sangpo further illuminates them from his study. And I was fortunate to study several of, or to hear, which is the typical way of referring to study, hear from Khetsun Sangpo several different texts of Longchenpas from Khetsun Sangpo. Several. So he says, Mi-pam-gya-tsho, says the final destination, that is the exalted thought of all the various doors of doctrine, of sutra and mantra. Mantra is another word for tantra. And sometimes people just convert the word mantra to tantra, but the book says mantra. Eloquently spoken by the victor. Meets back to the fundamental mind of natural clear light. Touches back to, or touches, it's quite stimulating for me how one's going to take this meets to. Is it back to, or is it just meets to? Is it derives from? I mean, is it any different from the fundamental mind of natural clear light? When I use the word back to, it suggests that maybe it's slightly different from. And I think when we read this and look look at it, is the destination any different from the fundamental mind of natural clear light? The fundamental mind of natural clear light, the innate pristine wisdom, the natural great completeness. Now remember, in the title of the book, it is in the title, isn't it, or soon after the title? Yes, well, we're making a discrimination where between the basis, path, and fruit, great completenesses. And why are we doing this? We don't want to make a mess out of the basis, path, and fruit, great completenesses. We want to discriminate between the basis, path, and fruit, great completenesses. We want to know the correct and incorrect basis, great completeness, the correct and incorrect path, great completeness. We want to know the correct and incorrect fruit, great completeness. Otherwise, we'll get in trouble. So, the great completeness, obviously, these three are to be analyzed. Obviously, are not just one thing, because we have to discriminate the three. And then I changed the period here to a semicolon, because that's how the Tibetan reads. And I'm trying nowadays to mimic more the flow of the Tibetan. The primeval, and I added in the Tibetan, Yetok, basal clear light, the primordial, Dharma, mode of abiding, the primordial basically, so that you feel the flow of the Tibetan. The primeval or original, basal clear light, the primordial mode of abiding, is the final noumenon of all phenomena, and then Khetsun Sangpo added in the great completeness. Now, probably he meant to repeat what Mipam Gyatsho himself said earlier in the sentence, the natural great completeness. The natural great completeness that is always there, whether we practice the path or not. But he just said the great completeness. So I, as his editor, didn't add in natural. Why should I? I mean, I don't mind adding things, as the editor, I don't mind adding things in if I think that's what he meant. But it's in there earlier in the sentence, so no need to. After all, I'm being recorded, so I can point this out. All appearances of cyclic existence and nirvana dawn from within this. Now, in Gelug, it's said that all appearances dawn from within, emptiness being their final nature. Sometimes when we listen to Nyingma, we can think, this is entirely different. Well, at minimum, there are many, many echoes back and forth. I'm not talking about origins within Gelug, which some of us may be more used to. There is not a single phenomenon outside of continually abiding in it. This is true also in Gelug. So, Khetsun Sangpo, I don't want to keep repeating his name like somebody who tries to repeat the name of the Lama as many times as possible, as if you're, repeating a TV advertisement, so you repeat the name as many times as possible, or you put up on the wall, even the names of colleges and so forth, as many times as possible. The White House used to have the dignity of just having the name White House once, but now they've got it twice. So I think it's sort of disgusting. White House doesn't need to have its name twice. But if you go to, if there's a TV thing of Princeton, they've got it, 20, 30, 40 times. If you have something from CNN, you have it 50, 100, 200 times. It's totally disgusting. You should have it no times. CNN. It would have more impact. People would say, "Oh, where's this from?" And you'd say, somebody would say, "Oh, I think it's CNN." It'd have much more impact. So, but I'm just trying to keep our place where we are on the page. The reason why I put his name on the page is so that you know this isn't Mipam. Mipam's at the margin. Now in my books, I'm putting a three-sided square around the comments and the name, so you know where it begins, where it ends. All of the appearances of cyclic existence. So you see, cyclic existence and Nirvana were mentioned. So one function of a commentator is to tell you what is cyclic existence. From the most torturous hell, that's way down at the bottom, most torturous. There's nothing more torturous than the most torturous hell. Now, frankly, if I was a good commentator, I would tell you why it's called the most torturous. And frankly, I've forgotten. I don't know. There are the hot hells, cold hells. There are the neighboring hells. When you come out of a hell, you think, "Oh, wow, that's really great, I'm out of it." But then there are the ones in between, and like the hill, and your friend is up on top of the hill, and the friend you haven't seen in a long time. You think, "Oh, this is my friend. There's my friend. I'm gonna go see him," and you start going up. I start going up to see him, and as you go up, as I go up, my flesh is like going up an iron grater, a cheese grater. So your flesh is. Am I mixing up two hells? But anyway, when you get up to the top, your friend's mouth is gaping open, and he chops off your head. We often say that, right? "Well, you don't have to bite my head off, do you?" Why do we say that? You don't have to bite my head off. So then, of course, because your head's bitten off, you swoon. You swoon. And then after a while you wake up there and you look down and there's the same friend. And then you say, oh, there you are. And so being the fool that I am, I want to see my friend. Even though just a little while ago, the friend bit my head off. And so on the way down, I think on the way down also some horrible thing happens. But anyway, I get down to the bottom and the friend's mouth opens up and bites your head off again. As we say, you don't have to bite my head off. Isn't that the way our emotional relationships are? You get sucked back into them again. So there are these various types of it's like overeating, isn't it? How many times have I overeaten? Oh, such good food. I better get a lot. So neighboring hells of various sorts. But what would the most torturous be? Because even in some of the hot hells, even your flesh, everything boils in like a big pot. Just like molten iron or bronze or whatever. What could be worse than that? Anyway, I like reflecting on these. They really say a lot about my own emotions. And that's why I talk about them. A lot of times when lamas go to centers, the people in the centers say, oh, don't talk about the hells. It'll disturb people won't come back. I think people will come back if you explain. You know, because some of them are really funny. Some of them make me go, ooh. Anyway, from the most torturous hell on up to the peak of cyclic existence. The peak, what seems to be the best. As well as all appearances of the various types of nirvana. The nirvanas of hearers, solitary realizers, and even the nirvanas of Buddhas. As he explains, I got some of that in the new version. Shine forth. This is the same word as dawn. So I use different words, dawn and shine forth. From within this primordial, from within the primordial mode of abiding of all phenomena, the original basal clear light. How powerful these words are, psychologically evocative. When His Holiness taught in London at the Camden Center, where he gave the teaching on the 3 keys that I mixed with the teaching he gave me in his office in Dharamsala, privately, to make this book that came out this year, last year, this year. What month this is? Probably last year. And his 80th birthday was the year before. And he said that from one point of view, he said, it is said by some, that from one point of view, Nyingma teachings are from the point of view of the fruit, from the point of view of Buddhahood, from the point of view of the state of Buddhahood. You know, this clear light, that is the goal. So the vocabulary is pulling you through, pulling you from that through to the final state. In Gelugpa teachings, this doesn't mean all of them, is from the point of view of the basal state, the ordinary state, pushing you forward to the final state. So I think this means that Nyingma has a lot of psychologically evocative terms that evoke what it's like, what the final clear light state is like. Whereas Gelug has a lot of powerful vocabulary that describes the ordinary state in a way that pushes you forward to the final state, the way it describes the false appearance of things so that you become dissatisfied with the fake appearance of things and you want to turn away from this fake appearance. That's the way I take it. So, of course, Gelug has a lot of talk about the fundamental innate mind of clear light, of course. But here we're getting a lot of talk about that, the primordial basal mode of abiding, how everything appears from within that. No matter, so then, I don't know how much of the new book you have. No matter how names, how many names, many names it is given, it is the, let's see, what do we have? No matter, so it said the original basal clear light. No matter how many names it is given, it is the Great Completeness. It is the primeval, original, primordial mode of abiding, like a place whose limits cannot be measured. This is material I've added. That he said, of course. Like a place like an unbounded place, like a place whose ends and, like an infinite place. The basal clear light is the basic mode of abiding from among the basest path and fruit. It is getting at the body of attributes of a Buddha. Now, there's quite a bit of talk in here. It's basal, but it's the body of attributes of a Buddha. Whether a phenomenon is of cyclic existence or nirvana. Now, what's nirvana? And he takes a little aside here and said, the strongholds. You see, this is, this is like ancient vocabulary. You want to be in a castle for protection. So what's the protection? The strongholds. What are the strongholds? the liberations ranging from those of hearers and solitary realizers through to Buddhas. It, whether a phenomenon is of cyclic existence or nirvana, it shines forth from and abides within this primordial basal mode of abiding. No matter what it is you're talking about, it shines forth from this basis and it abides within the basis. You know, when we see something, we don't see it as shining forth from this clear light basis. We don't see it as abiding in the basis. Like a wave, we don't see it as water. We see it as a wave. We don't see it as the ocean. We see it as a wave. And it doesn't pass beyond that basis. We see this wave and that wave. It would be like asking a surfer just to see water. The surfer is totally involved with this wave and that wave. The surfer would have to become totally re-educated. And we are like the surfer, totally involved in this wave and that wave. I'm totally involved in what Trump's doing. Mr. Trump, he's doing this and he's doing that. He's doing this and he's doing that. Whatever appearance of cyclic existence or nirvana dawns, it dawns from it. And while appearing, it without deviation continuously remains the exalted thought of the body of attributes. You can see that the yogi is absorbed in something very deep.